define the physical makeup of our bodies. But is it also responsible for how we behave? Can it explain compassion, kindness? You're about to meet a mathematician who argued that true human kindness doesn't exist. It's nothing more than an evolutionary survival trait. And he's got an equation that can prove it. Have you ever done something truly kind? Perhaps you won a medal for your selfless act of bravery, or had your philanthropy praised in the papers. Well, suppose I could prove mathematically that your so-called kindness is an illusion, nothing more than an accident of our evolution. What does that say about the very nature of good and evil? The mathematician and atheist George Price, there are two worlds. The world of numbers and the world of people. In the world of numbers, he is a genius. In the world of people, not so much.
So George Price is a real-life cross between Forrest Gump and Rain Man. On the Forrest Gump side, he is always at the periphery of a great scientific or technological revolution. Whether it's at the Manhattan Project working as a chemist on uranium enrichment, or at Bell Labs working on transistor research at the telecommunications revolution, or inventing computer-aided design for IBM. On the Rain Man side, alongside his great brilliance, he's also a very strange human being, not very good with people. Ma'am.
The rational world of numbers led him to become an atheist, which didn't go down so well with his religious wife. Their marriage fails, and Price travels to London searching for a new direction.
A good fight.
Yes.
Price buries himself in London's many libraries, reading any scientific paper that attracts him. He stumbles across a subject he's never considered before: evolution. Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection says that tiny differences between offspring can make one more likely to survive and reproduce than another.
So, for example, if you live in a region where resources become sparse and you have to climb trees to get food, those people who have good tree climbing skills would be able to survive in those conditions, whereas others who hadn't received those genes to allow them to climb the trees wouldn't.
Evolution is nothing new, but Price finds a revolutionary paper by biologist William Hamilton. It applies evolution not to the way our bodies work, but to the way we behave.
Many evolutionary biologists consider this to be the most important paper in evolution in the last 100 years. The genius of his idea was to apply natural selection thinking not just to physical characteristics such as body size, but also to social behavior among humans as well.
Price analyzes Hamilton's argument that social behavior is carried in our genes, just like hair or eye color. The paper attempts to solve a problem which has confounded every biologist since Darwin. How can generous self-sacrifice, known as altruism, be a survival trait?
Here's the problem. Imagine a gene that caused the ultimate self-sacrifice, to give your life on behalf of somebody else. Well, that gene is going to disappear from the population because the individual who possesses that gene will obviously have no offspring.
Hamilton realizes that if you die saving a close relative, they might also be carrying the altruism gene and pass it on to the next generation, as long as your death saves them.
For example, a mother who throws herself in front of a bus to save 3 offspring has her gene survive into the next generation and has a bigger genetic advantage than if she had not thrown herself in front of the bus.
Price approaches the problem as a mathematician and develops a profoundly new set of equations to explain this idea. He sends his work to Hamilton.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
this is Bill Hamilton.
Price points out shortcomings in Hamilton's paper.
I simply think that you've stumbled on the more basic axioms. I mean, we all make mistakes, Professor Hamilton.
Please, call me Bill.
Okay, Bill. I think you'll find that if you calculate covariance, that...
Price's math takes Hamilton's original ideas to a whole new level of sophistication.
Mr. Price, forgive me, but could you run that past me again?
What Price comes up with is not a theory. Rather, it is a theorem. It is a mathematical truth, and it is always true under every and all circumstances, which is amazing.
Price's theorem mathematically proves Hamilton's idea that altruism is an evolutionary survival trick. No matter how selfless a person seems, the math says genes are always in control. You may think you're being generous, but in reality, your behavior is really to benefit your own genes.
When do you mean to publish?
Well, nobody knows who I am, so...
George. May I call you George? You have to publish.
No.
And with Hamilton's help, Price does get his work published in the prestigious science journal Nature.
George Price.
So this is the actual Price paper. The most amazing thing about this paper is that at its end you can see there are absolutely no references. Now I cannot tell you how rare that is. In fact, it's not even rare. It absolutely never happens in science. And this in a paper that purported to provide the answer to one of the greatest mysteries that science was looking at.
I guess.
George Price has found status, prestige, and much to his own surprise, a lifelong friend. But despite what his brilliant paper says, Price sees pure altruism all around him. Can these inspiring examples of human kindness really be explained away with math? He becomes troubled by the bleak notion that heroism results from the self-serving biology of our brains. He wonders, hopes even, that he's made an error.
If a scientific theory is correct, it should always work where it's applied. A single counterexample to the theory is enough to falsify it. Price knew all this, so he reasoned that all I have to do is find one counterexample to my own theory, for example, by showing that there is a true case of unconditional altruism in humans, to blow his own theory out of the water.
To escape the implications of his own theory, he sets out to kill it with kindness. George Price's mathematical equation proves human kindness is just self-interest in disguise. We have evolved to help others only because it helps our genes survive. His scientific breakthrough reveals the world to be cold, predictable, out of our conscious control. Then one day, the atheist mathematician has a revelation.
There is God. When he came up with his equation, he began contemplating what an enormous coincidence it was. Because all the great minds going back to Darwin had been trying to crack this problem, and yet it was him, a complete outsider, who came up with this quite miraculous equation. And so, thinking of other coincidences that had occurred to him during his lifetime, very strange things like 4 girlfriends by the name of Anne, and the last 4 digits of his phone number being 2399, which he interpreted to be just a moment before midnight. It's the last chance to find God and so forth. And he multiplied all these coincidences and came up with an astronomical figure, 1 divided by 10 to the 27th, which meant that the chance that all of these things should have happened to him was infinitesimal, and yet they had all happened to him.
Price believes only God could beat such long odds, so he must exist.
Dear babies.
He shares the good news with his estranged daughters.
I have given in and admitted that God does exist.
He believes God's omnipotence is powerful enough to create true kindness, despite what the math says. Just as he was an uncompromising atheist, he is now an uncompromising Christian, treating Jesus' teachings of compassion and charity as exact instructions.
Thanks, Dad.
He starts by ridding himself of almost everything he owns. He applies his scientific rigor to a new goal, to do the illogical, to behave in a truly self-sacrificing manner.
He's one of my great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers.
He will prove that his theorem is wrong.
People will. It's wrong.
It's not wrong because you don't like it, George. Now you and I, asked a difficult question about human nature and we got a difficult answer. Whether you like it or not, this is how we are.
You're wrong.
Whatever Price may now believe, the scientific world accepts that he has reduced the concept of kindness to a mathematical formula.
Proves it doesn't, in fact.
You're wrong, Bill. You're wrong, and I can prove it.
You're throwing away your career.
To prove his equations wrong, he invites vagrants and alcoholics to live in his apartment. George lets his new house guests do and take what they want. And by August 1972, they leave Price with nothing.
I am now down to exactly 15 pence. I look forward eagerly to when that 15 pence will be gone.
George?
His diet consists of just 1 pint of milk a day.
What are you doing here, man? You can't be here. It's freezing cold, for goodness sake. Here. Come with me. You can't stay out. Come on. Yes. Come on, George. Come on. Yes, come this way. It's so cold. Come on. Let's find you some more.
Hamilton persuades his friend to ease back on his selfless life before it kills him. They meet on December 19th, and Price agrees to work with Hamilton on a new genetics project.
To 1975. Better year for both of us.
A better year.
Price has realized trying to disprove his theorem is a hopeless cause. No matter how selfless his acts appear, there is always the possibility that there is some evolutionary advantage he hasn't considered.
George Price set out to be selfless, completely selfless, to act against his own mathematics. And in the end, he didn't know whether in his acts of true kindness there was in fact a hidden motive of egoism, which would be a reflection of his own mathematics. So he did not know and he could not prove that the math was actually correct or incorrect.
It's too much for Price. He is found dead on January 6, 1975. He's cut his throat with nail scissors, killed by his own theory.